Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan released the mini-budget this week. Engineering News Editor Terence joins me now in studio to discuss some of the highlights. Terence, welcome to Second Take. There was much speculation ahead of the minister's address to Parliament that there will be some interventions to weaken the rand. What was said in this regard?
Yes, I think that the rand has been the big issue, not only for South Africa, but emerging markets generally. Their currencies and the strength of their currencies has become a major issue, and there's been a lot of talk about the prospect of currency wars as people have been speaking about interventions to weaken their currencies. And ahead of the budget, we did have the release of the new growth path, and it was suggested we probably would look at ways to moderate the strength of the rand. So ahead of the budget, there was a lot of speculation about whether there would be a withholding tax on capital inflows or other tax forms on capital inflows to try and moderate that rise. But in the budget proper, the finance minister kept his powder dry in this respect. He's saying that he's going to be monitoring other examples of such intervention. And there are a number of countries taking such interventions, including the Brazilians have been quite active in this regard. But it really doesn't seem to have had much effect on the Brazilian real, which continues to strengthen against the dollar. And instead, what the finance minister said is he reconfirmed that we would continue to buy reserves when we can. And we've already spent 43 billion rand on acquiring foreign exchange reserves this year, and to try and offset that. And that he also liberalised foreign exchange controls further, both in an attempt to try and deal with this rampant rand.
Is it fair to say that infrastructure was again a key driver of the economy?
Yes, again, it's been emphasised that infrastructure is an important building block for the next few years, helping us. Infrastructure was emphasised last year very much during the recession, our first in 17 years, as a way to stimulate the economy, get us through. But there was a big mismatch between what was actually promised last year and what was delivered. Eskom had major funding problems and therefore couldn't spend at the rate they wanted to do. And Transnet looked at, the rationale for some of their projects, and those changed as a result of the recession, and therefore also didn't spend at that rate. So what we've had is massive underspending against target. And the government departments in 2009, also it was reported in the mini budget that they spent about 12 billion less than what was initially budgeted. So yes, it's again a major theme. 811 billion over the next 3 years will be spent on infrastructure. This is important to keep the economy going, to get our economic infrastructure in place to facilitate growth and development in this economy, to get jobs going, to get the construction industry moving. And again, it was re-emphasized. But I think there was a sense of balance this time round, saying, okay, we're making these promises. And although they didn't say that they failed and broke those promises, Pravin Gordhan indirectly admitted that a new approach has to be taken to delivery. We need some more technical capacity, especially within line departments. And I think once the funding challenges are sorted out at Eskom, we probably will start seeing a pickup. So yes, it's a centerpiece of the mini budget. It's a centerpiece of the budget for the next year. But again, we must realize a lot of it's going to be spent off budget. It's going to be the Eskoms and the Transnets and the other state-owned enterprises that are going to be doing the bulk of this.
The medium-term budget policy statement was also made against the backdrop of the new growth path, as you said earlier. Do you think there's alignment between the two documents?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I think there will be elements, especially on the left, that are very happy with what's been said in the new growth path, and will probably be less happy with how it was reflected in the medium-term budget policy statement. But I think it's an issue of evolution, of getting these plans to speak to each other. And I think we are seeing the new growth path, I think, is going to provide impetus for the February budget. I think there's going to be emphasis, as I said, on this more activist policy to weaken the rand, which is an important element to getting the real economy moving again. Whether it will have any influence is a matter, we'll have to wait and see, because as I said earlier about Brazil, it hasn't really had that influence that they've wanted. But I think that we're going to see emerging alignment between the two. And I think that there is a growing realization that unless we deal with this chronic jobs crisis and the poverty crisis and deal with it decisively, we're really setting ourselves up for failure in the long term.
Terence, thank you very much. That is the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching and join us again next time for more news analysis.